Mann entered the world of motorsport last year and raced in the Lotus Cup.
This season she made the very bold step into the world of the Porsche Carrera Cup and will be following her progress.
So stay tuned for all of the most up-to-date interviews and information from Tania and her team.
So Tania, thank you so much for letting us come to your house and disrupt you. I know that we've been moving everything around, but we want to get straight to the nuts and bolts and talk about Donington Park.
Yeah, we had the free practice on Thursday and it was a really good start. Got some really good times again, which I was very, very pleased with. Still sort of learning that circuit and getting to grips with the faster parts of that circuit and trying to shave a bit of time off, because that seemed to be from the data where I was losing the majority of my times.
And so what parts of the circuit did you find the most challenging?
I think the hardest section for me is the faster section, particularly going down sort of through cops. It's quite a scary, daunting part of the circuit. And
so you had 2 practice sessions on the Thursday. What can Tim do to help and advise? Obviously he can't sit in the car with you.
So where Tim can help me is he can sit with me to review the data that we have. He might also go for a wander around the track and sit on some of the corners for a little while and just see if my approach is correct and things like that. You know, sometimes the data is great because it might indicate, well, compared to my teammate Michael Meadows, you know, I can look at his data and it might indicate that he's, say, braking 20 metres after me. I'm too early, I could hold off for a while.
And so for you, is it finding those visual reference points into the corners, or is it a case of using instinct and feeling the circuit?
They're very valuable for ensuring consistency. And obviously in a race situation where there's cars around or it might be wet, you know, sometimes you can't see them, but as a general rule, I think they're very good, and certainly a lot of fantastic drivers around me use a braking point.
And your relationship with Tim is really building up now?
Yeah, it is really good. You know, I've spent a lot of time with him now. He's really generous and he's great at conveying things to me, and I guess that's one area where he's quite valuable in terms of sitting down to do data and things like that.
She listens, she applies herself, she takes notes. We look at what the other guys are doing, we watch her onboard video. You know, it's a case of trying not to give too much information, otherwise the head gets scrambled, but give her the key points. If she just does those things and they become ingrained in her automatic instinctive driving, then that's fine and we'll move on to the next thing.
We went with Tania to her gym to find out how she prepares physically for racing and to put me through my paces.
So I usually like to start by working on my core, and I like to use the Swiss ball to do that. I usually do this exercise first because most of the work that we do involves the core.
And how long would you be doing this for?
So I go through a series of these where I go from 4-point like that, where I might go to 3-point with an arm in the air.
So between your practice on the Thursday and your qualifying and then race over the weekend, you had a day off.
We did.
What did you do on your day off?
My day off was spent sitting in my car, in my seat, having a bespoke insert made. Basically, the seats that we have, they're just a generic kind of racing seat, but I found, particularly with my small frame and waist and everything, that regardless of how tight I was strapped into my seat, I was still getting a huge amount of movement. And you know, if you're constantly bracing yourself, it's exhausting. So yeah, it did take a few hours, but it's just one of those things you have to do, and it's amazing to see the end result. So having that new support has just made me a little bit safer, a little bit more secure in my seat now. So
you're in Pro-Am 2, so is your focus just to race against the other Pro-Am 2s, or do you strive to get in amongst the Pro-Am 1s?
I definitely aim to get the best time I can. You know, at the moment my times are starting to get very, very close to those of Pro-Am 1, you know, only a tenth or two away. So as the year progresses and I get more time in the seat, yeah, we'll see. I could end up maybe mixing with them later in the year. We're going to have a go at doing some squats.
Oh yes, the squats. It's
It's okay, I find this one's,
doing a good
it's a bit
job.
painful, but it's okay.
You're doing a good job. Only thing is, you're using a weight of 12.5 kilos.
Yeah, I'm hardcore.
I'd actually be using 40, something like this.
40, right, hang on.
So,
Okay, so over my head, this is ridiculous. Okay, I'm gonna valiantly bow out of that, okay?
yeah.
Only 15 minutes into the workout and I was already feeling the pain. However, Tania seemed to be finding it all a little bit too easy.
So let's talk about race 1.
Race 1 went really well. I was really chuffed to find myself challenging the pack of the Prime 1 guys. So I guess, you know, I'm starting to feel a bit more comfortable in the race situation after Brands Hatch. And it was a really nice feeling to actually be pushing myself and challenging myself to try and stay on the heels of them. And in particular, my teammate Ugel was someone that I was challenging for most of the race, which was really, really good. I was really pleased to stay on him. But unfortunately, later in the race, I braked a little bit too late coming into the S's, and I locked up the rears.
So the Porsches are quite brutal then. You can do one small thing wrong and they literally just bite your head off.
Yeah, you have to be really, really careful and have finesse when it comes to braking in them. But when you start having any amount of steering on, then you need to be really, really careful.
So a bit of drama in race 1, including that spin there, but still a fantastic finish, a fantastic drive. What happened in race 2?
My aim for race 2 was to hopefully have no altercations, no spins or anything like that. I obviously had the minor error in my braking, judgment of braking. So I wanted to just finish another race and hopefully, if I could, again try and stay on the tails of Prime 1.
So you talk about hairy moments. Well, there was none from you in race 2, but there was that dropped oil.
After, you know, misjudging my braking at that corner in the first race, you know, I was particularly focused at making sure I hit the point every time, and I was coming down there later in the race and I just went straight on, you know, did my usual braking and went straight on. I was like, oh gosh, there must have been something down there.
So you got through that oil spill with pretty much no drama and continued to chase Ugel. Is he one of the drivers you've identified as someone to keep up with over the course of the season?
To be honest, I didn't specifically think I'm going to target Ugel. It was more something that just happened at that circuit. You know, he's one of the slower Prime 1 guys that I might rub shoulders with during this year. So naturally I would sort of find myself maybe, you know, up against him at times. And
your race pace in race 2 was really competitive. Was that due to a learning curve? Was that an improvement from race 1 due to the experience?
Yeah, it's funny you should mention that. I did actually have on average quicker times in race 2, and that's something which is always really pleasing, to have consistently quicker times throughout the whole duration of the race.
So Donington Park was an improvement on Brands with much more consistent driving and a couple of little incidents that you had to deal with. So maximum points from Donington. Let's have a look towards Thruxton.
I'm really excited about Thruxton, but it's going to be extremely interesting because I don't know the circuit. My only opportunity was the free practice day a couple of weeks ago, whenever it was, which formed part of this race weekend. And obviously we've got the challenge now of having to turn up on Saturday and jump into the car to do a qualifying session, which is going to be challenging, but it's obviously the same for everyone.
And so time-wise, what do you expect your qualification position to be?
Well, it's going to be a difficult one. I'd like to hope that perhaps I can achieve the times I got in free practice. I think I'm still aiming for the conservative goal of 2 finishes and getting just some experience and time in the seat and getting used to the race distance. So what we might look at doing is some press-ups. They're fantastic exercise to work, you know, the upper body and everything. Should we give them a go?
Let's give it a go.
Proper ones. We're not doing them from the knees or anything. We want straight back, similar to the plank.
And I'm not allowed to cheat?
No, so I'll give you an example of the kind we want. We want them to be nice and straight back.
Okay.
You want to go all the way down.
Yeah.
And then up.
So that counts as one then?
That counts as one. All the way down and up.
So I'll just crack on and try and get to 100, yeah?
See how you go.
100. Okay.
After 30 minutes of weights and core muscle exercises and an hour of CV, Tania was still going strong. I, however, called it quits.
Cut.